Yugoslavia means land of the South Slavs. For much of the 20th century, it was one of Europe's most unusual states, a country that brought together peoples with different religions, alphabets, historical memories, and political loyalties. It existed in several forms from 1918 to the early 1990s, stretching across Central Europe and the Balkans. Its story begins with a powerful idea that South Slavic peoples, long divided between empires, could be united in one sovereign country. But the same diversity that made Yugoslavia ambitious also made it fragile. To understand why it formed, why it survived for decades, and why it collapsed so violently, we have to begin before the country existed. Before Yugoslavia, the region was shaped by centuries of foreign rule. Much of the Balkans had been under the Ottoman Empire, while Slovenes, Croats, and others lived under the Habsburg monarchy. These imperial borders did more than divide territory, they shaped institutions, religions, economies, and identities. Serbia, meanwhile, had developed as an independent kingdom and became a focal point for South Slavic nationalism. By the early 20th century, many intellectuals and political leaders imagined a union of related peoples who spoke similar South Slavic languages. But agreement on unity did not mean agreement on power. Should the new state be centralized around Serbia, or should it recognize the separate histories of its peoples? World War I destroyed the old imperial order. Austria-Hungary collapsed, and the Ottoman Empire was no longer a major European power. In 1918, the Kingdom of Serbia merged with the provisional state of Slovenes, Croats and Serbs, creating the Kingdom of Serbs, Croats and Slovenes. It was the first sovereign union of South Slavic peoples. The new country carried great hopes, protection from larger neighbors, diplomatic recognition, and a chance to build a modern state after the devastation of war. But it also inherited deep problems. Serbia had emerged from the war victorious and influential, while many Croats and Slovenes feared domination by Belgrade. The founding compromise was uneasy from the start. The new kingdom was ruled by the Karađorđević dynasty. Peter I was its first sovereign, and after his death in 1921, Alexander I took the throne. International recognition followed in 1922 at the Conference of Ambassadors in Paris, confirming the new state's place in post-war Europe. Yet official recognition did not solve its internal political crisis. The kingdom struggled with disputes over representation, central authority, and national identity. Some politicians wanted a single Yugoslav nation, others insisted that Serbs, Croats, Slovenes, and other communities required federal protection. In 1929, amid growing instability, Alexander imposed the January 6 dictatorship and renamed the country the Kingdom of Yugoslavia. Alexander's dictatorship was meant to overcome ethnic division by suppressing party politics and promoting a unified Yugoslav identity. Instead, it deepened resentment. Centralization was seen by many non-Serbs as a mask for Serbian dominance, while opponents of the regime faced censorship and repression. The tensions were not only domestic. Yugoslavia sat in a dangerous neighborhood where Italy, Hungary, Germany, and Bulgaria all watched the Balkans closely. In 1934, King Alexander was assassinated in Marseille, a dramatic sign of how unstable the kingdom had become. His young son Peter II was not yet ready to rule, so Prince Paul governed as regent during an increasingly threatening decade. By 1941, World War II reached Yugoslavia directly. After a coup in March that brought Peter II formally to power, Axis powers invaded in April. The kingdom collapsed quickly under attack and occupation. Yugoslavia was divided, with parts annexed or placed under collaborationist regimes. The occupation unleashed brutal violence, including ethnic persecution, civil war, and resistance. Out of this chaos, the communist-led partisans, headed by Josip Broz Tito, became the most important resistance movement. They fought the Axis while also promoting a revolutionary vision. Yugoslavia would be rebuilt after the war not as a royal centralized kingdom, but as a federation of equal peoples. The partisans gained international importance as the war continued. In late 1943, at the Tehran Conference, the Allies increasingly backed Tito's forces as the most effective resistance against the Axis in Yugoslavia. That same period saw the proclamation of Democratic Federal Yugoslavia by the anti-fascist resistance institutions. King Peter II, living in exile, eventually recognized the Anti-Fascist Council for the National Liberation of Yugoslavia as the legitimate government. This was a decisive shift. The monarchy still existed formally, but real power was moving toward the communist partisans. By the end of the war, Tito's movement had military legitimacy, Allied recognition, and control on the ground. In November 1945, elections created a constituent assembly, and on November 29 the monarchy was abolished. Yugoslavia became a federal republic, beginning 4 decades of uncontested Communist Party rule. The new Federal People's Republic of Yugoslavia was structured around republics meant to answer the old national question. It also gained territories from Italy, including Istria, Rijeka, and Zadar. Tito became the dominant figure, first as prime minister and later as president. His government suppressed political opposition, but it also offered a new formula, a socialist federation in which national identities could exist under the larger slogan of brotherhood and unity. Yugoslavia's socialist system was unlike most of Eastern Europe. Tito broke with Soviet leader Joseph Stalin in 1948, refusing to let Moscow control Yugoslav policy. This split made Yugoslavia a communist country outside the Soviet bloc, giving it a unique position in the Cold War. It later became a leading member of the non-aligned movement, balancing between East and West. Domestically, Yugoslavia developed worker self-management and allowed more openness than many communist states, including travel and cultural exchange. But the system still depended heavily on Tito's authority, the Communist Party, and a careful balancing of republics, provinces, and national groups. In 1963, the country took its final name, the Socialist Federal Republic of Yugoslavia, or SFRY. It consisted of 6 socialist republics, Bosnia and Herzegovina, Croatia, Macedonia, Montenegro, Serbia, and Slovenia. Inside Serbia were 2 autonomous provinces, Kosovo and Vojvodina. The 1974 constitution gave these provinces broad powers, making them in many ways nearly equal to the republics within the federal system. This structure was designed to prevent domination by any single group, especially Serbia, the largest republic. But it also made decision-making complicated. Yugoslavia became a state held together by constitutional balance, party discipline, economic compromise, and Tito's personal prestige. Tito died in 1980, and Yugoslavia lost its central political figure. Almost immediately, long-term problems became harder to manage. The economy weakened under debt, inflation, unemployment, and regional inequality. Slovenia and Croatia were wealthier and increasingly frustrated with subsidizing poorer areas. Kosovo saw rising unrest among its Albanian majority, while Serbian politicians argued that Serbs were disadvantaged by the federal system. As communist authority weakened across Eastern Europe during the revolutions of 1989, nationalism became a powerful political tool. Leaders who once spoke the language of socialist unity increasingly presented themselves as defenders of their own nation against the others. The breakup followed the borders of the republics, but it did not happen peacefully. Slovenia and Croatia moved toward independence in 1991, followed by conflict. Bosnia and Herzegovina, with its mixed population of Bosniaks, Serbs, and Croats, became the site of the deadliest war. Macedonia separated without major fighting, while Serbia and Montenegro formed a reduced Federal Republic of Yugoslavia in 1992. The Yugoslav wars brought ethnic cleansing, sieges, mass displacement, and genocide. From 1993 to 2017, the International Criminal Tribunal for the former Yugoslavia prosecuted political and military leaders for war crimes, genocide, and crimes against humanity committed during these conflicts. After the main breakup, the name Yugoslavia survived briefly in a smaller form. Serbia and Montenegro claimed to continue the old state as the Federal Republic of Yugoslavia, but the other former republics rejected the idea that it was the sole legal successor. Eventually, succession was treated as shared among the former republics. In 2003, the state renamed itself Serbia and Montenegro, and in 2006, Montenegro voted for independence. Serbia became independent as well. Kosovo declared independence in 2008, a status still disputed. Yugoslavia's legacy remains complex, a bold experiment in unity, a socialist federation, and a warning about how unresolved national questions can outlive the states built to contain them. If you found this helpful, please like this video and subscribe for more explainers.